I want to call to order the January 23rd meeting of the Monroe County Community Justice Response Committee. I don't know that we have an official roll call because this is my first meeting. Do we typically do that, sir?
Last meeting.
We had wanted to indicate those who were present in the past, and we had asked that maybe our practice has been we've either gone around the table or we've had Courtney call the roll. So, but it's up to the chair at this point.
Okay. Well, I do want to welcome everyone who's here. And so if people could go around and indicate their names for today, and then we'll sort out a few other things. So start to my left.
Julie Thomas, County Commissioner.
Catherine Stafford, Judge, Monroe Circuit Court 4.
Darcy Fawcett, Judge, Circuit Court 9.
Kara Carthy, Judge, Circuit Court 6.
Mary Ellen Dekoff, Judge, Circuit Court 5, and I'm the presiding judge.
April Wilson, Felony Deputy Prosecutor. I'll be the proxy representing the prosecutor's office today.
Michael Hunt, Public Defender.
Karen Renbach, Public Defender.
Kyle Gibbons, Monroe County Jail Commander.
Rue Monte, Monroe County Sheriff.
Kate Wiltz, Monroe County Counsel.
Jennifer Crossling, Monroe County Counsel.
Peter Iverson, Monroe County Counsel.
Lee Jones, Monroe County Commissioner.
And I'm Penny Githens, Monroe County Commissioner. So at this point, I'd like to just review. Sorry, I'm trying to take the roll here too. That our guiding principles are prioritize treatment over incarceration when appropriate, to build a justice facility that meets constitutional standards and treats inmates with dignity, address inequities in race, economic status, disability, national origin, sexual orientation, and gender, and to reduce the number of people entering the criminal justice system and reduce recidivism for those who either are or were in the system. So at last Wednesday's commissioner meeting, we revised our ordinance to indicate that we would like to have a smaller group to be working with. We would like to have consistent members in terms of who represents a given office, that it would be all three members of the county commissioners, 3 members from the county council, a member of the sheriff's office, 1 member from the public defender's office, 1 member from prosecutor's office, 2 judges, one of them being the presiding judge or someone that she appoints. Part of this was to help us move forward, and we had originally conceptualized this as working on Intercept 0 and then Intercept 6, and at that time we weren't necessarily expecting to build jails so soon. Then when we set in motion the plan to buy Fullerton Pike, the Fullerton Pike property, we expanded the committee, thinking we would soon be working on design. So we're now back to where we're looking for property, which is the commissioner's statutory duty, something we will do with input and support cooperation from our colleagues on the county council. We've also decided, as I said earlier, to limit input from other offices to one person. We felt that we're just trying to even out the voices, basically. So as we move, though, to subgroups, which Judge Dekoff has suggested and that we originally had talked about, that would be time to expand the groups per the wishes of the subgroups, so that does not eliminate people. It allows us to bring other things in. In my mind, there are 3 things that we're asked to consider: the jail facility itself, what our philosophy is toward community corrections, which, as we said in the guiding principles, is to prevent contact with the criminal justice system and treatment, programming in our jail, how we transition detainees out of the jail, and finally, the separate thing is the judicial processes. Different people's expertise will be needed at different times as we move through this. So I would like to go to Judge Dekoff's suggestion, which is that we return to the original direction and focus on that intercept 0 and break into the subgroups that we need to look at what parts each of us play. So I'm not sure how the group wants to move forward with that. We can talk about that as we move through the agenda. Judge Deacon.
If I can expand on that, the reason that my suggestion is to go back into subgroups is because it's been apparent in watching the meetings that there are quite a few people interested in the process and at different various parts of the process and the way that the process works. When we originally began this, as I understand it, the idea was that subgroups would meet to talk about all of the guiding principles and the processes and how that should be done. Within that, then, there are certain things that are left solely to the commissioners and to the county council in regards to property or purchasing or the size of things or how that's going to happen. But to get to that point, we discussed that it was necessary that all of the parts of the system that have an interest should be able to discuss those issues and then bring those forward to the commissioners to be able to make the final determination. So my suggestion is to go back to those subgroups. Today I've talked with the judges and the sheriff and the prosecutor and the chief public defender, who are in agreement that trying the subgroups again might be productive in that we can then, as you've just said, bring in those others into those subgroups that have interests or comments or suggestions as well, so that all of those ideas can be processed, but within those various areas of expertise or knowledge or interest. So that was the purpose for my suggestion.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Givens. So I do have a follow-up on the subgroups and one other point, but I know that County Councilor Crossley, did you want to go first? You'd mentioned right before we went on.
Yeah, if I can.
Thank you.
Just to be on record. I just had a quick question because it's not clear to me. I know that it's been mentioned in the work session that happened last week, and I was under the impression that it had to be ratified Wednesday at your regular session. Because if we're going by that principle, then 2 out of 4 judges shouldn't be sitting here. So I'm just trying to make sure that we all are making sure that we're playing by the rules here. Like, does this mean, because I see all 3 of you here and I see all 4 of them here, does this mean that we are acting as though that change has already happened?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. We do go through a ratification process, but we use this process on a number of items on our work session agenda because they're not always publicly noticed. So if it's a contract, for example, the contract's considered signed and we sign it, even though we have the ratification at subsequent meetings. So yes, it is valid. And I think our assumption was that since folks came out today, that we wouldn't be as concerned about having too many people at the table today. Okay. But the next meeting, we would want to see the correct numbers. Okay. And in preparation for this, and I'm not trying to take a lot of time here, I just, again, y'all know me, I speak, what is on my heart in the sake of this committee. But I'm wondering, and I see that Ms. Turner-King is on here as well as legal. I've been doing a lot of research to make sure that we were all prepped for this meeting that seemed to be ever-changing up until 2:30 today. But I am under the impression that this is an advisory committee, and what I see, according to Robert's rules that I have here, that this is almost technically like a committee of a whole. And if it is to be the committee of the whole, according to the rules, it does say that a committee of the whole cannot appoint subcommittees or refer a matter to another ordinary committee. And so I guess I'm just curious to see how we are really, if we're changing the rules,
and we're going by that, then I just want clarification of how we are supposed to move forward. And if somebody can give me clarification on that, that would be helpful.
So rather than considering it a committee of the whole, because we have multiple elected and appointed folks here at the table, it is an advisory committee. And if we want to go through the motions of creating bylaws, we could, but that seems like it is an incredible waste of time to go through and create bylaws instead of it just being an advisory committee. So I know we're happy to have any suggestions, comments, hey, at the next meeting, we'd like to do X, Y, Z. That's great. But to actually formalize this as a board or commission is not something that we intended to do.
Can we have Ms. Turner King weigh in just to clarify, just so that we all are on one accord, if she is able to, please?
She got kicked off.
Okay.
She said her Zoom is reconfiguring.
Okay.
And while it's reconfiguring, I'm happy to do my follow-up question and then come back, if that's okay at this time, Commissioner Givens. So I'm glad we're talking about the rules. Actually, going back to our guiding principles, there's a line at the beginning that I think was left out, so I just wanted to make sure we include it. Recognizing our commitment to public safety, we will work collaboratively and transparently too, and then it was the following. I bring that up because when I hear collaboration, I hear inclusion. And inclusion and transparency are imperative for us to be successful as a committee, as well as a community. And it's difficult when recent actions feel in conflict with those goals. All three commissioners unanimously passed a CJRC ordinance this past Wednesday amending the membership of this committee, among other changes, specifically removing 2 judicial voices. That amendment was not on the agenda. It wasn't included in the work session packet, and it wasn't read out loud during the meeting. Those actions don't feel transparent, and that's difficult. In addition to removing those 2 judicial voices, we also received an email on Thursday letting us know that today's meeting was canceled with the sole cited reason is that the presiding judge's presence was imperative. We didn't have any additional information to help us narrow down what singular topic was so important that we had to stop all further discussion, because I know there's a myriad of issues we're trying to address, that it would require one person's attendance and the cessation of any further community or collaborative approach on this committee. That action doesn't feel very inclusive. And I'm hoping as we move forward, which it sounds like you're sharing, you'd like to move forward in a more effective way, which I appreciate and respect, if that we could try to work towards matching our actions with our guiding principles, which is being transparent and inclusive. And that's, I think, where we're kind of struggling at this moment. There's a couple things that would be helpful. For example, today's amended agenda we didn't get at 2:30. If we could get that in advance and have an option of being able to add things onto the agenda, that would be very helpful. It would also be helpful that some documents that have been referenced in this committee, if we could all get equal access to those documents, it's really difficult for us to effectively advise and make recommendations without equal access to information. So I'm hoping moving forward, that is something that you're looking towards. For example, the RFQs, which are on our agenda, I still haven't received a copy, and I know everyone's been busy, but it'd be helpful if we all had access. And then regarding the subcommittees, I respect that there's different positions on it. In light of our guiding principles, though, about transparency and collaboration, I am a little concerned that it's difficult to get information in this singular meeting, that maybe we're just recreating information silos that will cause it to be more difficult for the public to be present at multiple subcommittee meetings and for us to be able to fully engage in the process with transparency, collaboration, and equal access for every member of this committee and every member of this community whose decisions will be affected by what occurs here.
Thank you. We will try to. Last week was rather crazy between Wednesday and getting everything done.
And I appreciate that. One other good example is when the trip to Arizona, for example, if we would have known in advance, we could have set questions. So that's another example. If there's any future jail visits, it'd be helpful to the whole committee to know that, so we can give you good questions to hopefully be as helpful as we can.
We'll be sharing information about our trip today. So, was there anything from Ms. Turner King?
I don't think so, but I'll reserve my comments till later.
Okay.
Hi, committee. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, my Zoom decided to reconfigure and I completely lost connection for 10 minutes. And so I'm not exactly sure what the question in the table for me was.
Okay, I'll just reiterate. I was under the impression that since this is an advisory committee, that this is almost as if it's like a committee of the whole. And I was looking at Robert's rules and was just trying to figure out if we are operating under this assumption of a committee of the whole. So I wondered if you could give some context to that.
So I consulted the other attorneys in county legal regarding whether the Robert's rules of order apply or govern the CJRC, and the collective opinion was that unless specifically adopted, that Robert's rules would not govern. So I don't think that there's any mention of Robert's rules in the Uniform Board and Commission Code under Chapter 216, so I'm not sure that Robert's rules apply.
So, as a clarification, if we were to adopt it now, could this committee vote on using Robert's Rules of Order going forward?
I would have to look into that because I'm not sure if it would be the committee that would be able to adopt the governance of Robert's rules, or if it would be the authority who created the committee.
Okay.
Then we would need a whole set of bylaws as well.
I'm sorry?
Then we would also need a whole set of bylaws to be created.
That's totally fine.
So I'd like to move on in the agenda at this point then. There are no survey updates to report. I'm sorry.
Before we started, if we could talk about the minutes from last time. Isn't that right, Mr. Iverson?
Yeah, and I fully admit that's on me. I did not include approval of minutes on the schedule, so minutes were not printed off or included. So
Apparently we're not following Robert's Rules of Order, so I don't know why you would have. But I had actually abstained from the motion about our Zoom meeting policy, and I didn't see that noted, and I would like that noted. I have that issue litigated in my court on a semi-regular basis, and I don't want to be taking a position on it, which is why I abstained.
And just for clarification, minutes from these meetings are included on the CJRC website, which you can go to the co.monroe.in.us, and under the Commissioners tab, you can see this committee's link, and those minutes are there. So duly noted, and that change will appear.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For the survey updates, I know that the Health Department is continuing to conduct theirs, and we hope to have things from the sheriff and the others soon. So we'll work with you on that. I know that you're busy with it. I know you're busy with a lot of new things in your life these days. So on as listed in here, there's nothing new on the land update. There's nothing, we'll get information on the RFQs at a future meeting, hopefully soon.
And I'll make a note that Ms. Purdy has alerted us to the fact that RFQ responses are not public record, so.
That's why we will give updates, yes.
Yeah. So we're gonna have the committee come in.
May I ask a quick question on that? The three companies that were that submitted an RFQ, it had been talked about previously that they would have an opportunity to come to this body and present, and I didn't know if that was still something that it was on the table.
I believe so. I believe that's still on the table. I'm not part of that committee, so we do have a group that has interviewed and is interviewing the three companies.
I think those presentations would be very interesting.
And that was, yeah, and so that committee will come
Excellent.
when they're able to and have information to share. We'll remind them about, we'll take that under advisement and remind them about the public side of it. But that was still part of the plan.
Sure.
As far as I know.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I apologize, we moved past land design update. Would you mind if I asked a question about the land update?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. So at the last CGRC meeting, the Commissioner Jones indicated that you would be open to hearing some ideas on possible land options within just ideas. So I was wondering if we could include on the next agenda, specifically allowing us to maybe make some proposals of some possible suggestions. It might be really helpful to invite a member from the City Council in particular. I think their expertise specifically in dealing with land in the city and some of our creative options to our solution would be pretty imperative. So I would ask if we could add that to our next agenda.
Well, at this point, we're not sure that we'll be looking at land within the city.
Oh,
So,
okay. Could we have that discussion then on the next agenda?
sure.
Thank you.
But like I said, we have nothing, since the Fullerton Pike was rejected. Since the Fullerton Pike was rejected, at this point, we have nothing new to report in terms of what's being considered.
I thought we were going to report on that this meeting. Didn't we say at the last meeting that you wanted us to come to this meeting with lists of ideas? Did I not hear that?
I think so. It was.
I did not say this meeting in particular. I just said that ideas would always be welcome.
So when do you all want those ideas?
May we send that out to you? The timing for that?
Sure.
Okay. We will work with Ruben and with with Sheriff Marte and with his jail commander, Commander Gibbons, on an update for when to talk about the jail also, if that's okay. We'll work with you on that. There's nothing on a legislative update from Mr. Councilman Iverson. We have heard that Ken Falk would like to talk with the group. We were trying to get him here tonight. He was not available, so we're trying to get him scheduled to talk to the group soon. These are the folks that we have to be working with because of the federal order. Yes.
I would ask that you would consider giving the floor to the sheriff and his team. They worked pretty hard over the weekend on a presentation, and I was wondering if they could have a bit of time today to present some of what they prepared for today's meeting.
I had not been informed about that. So I think that we can work that in. Thank you.
The only issue that I have is no one up there, but we have a PowerPoint right now. That's what we worked on this weekend.
Do you have it on a thumb drive, or do you have it, can you share your screen on a laptop? Do you have a thumb drive?
I better open ours. Did you send it to me? Huh? Did you send the revised one to me on? Oh, here it is. Got it. Better get this ready. Okay.
I corrected the typo.
You found it? That was good. Yeah, I was supposed to like an exclamation point.
I guess I'll say while we're waiting, that I know that in watching the commissioners meeting last week and then a couple of weeks ago at our county council meeting, that Sheriff Martin and his current jail commander have been given updates of things that they have been doing. And I know that originally on the schedule, which was surprising you mentioned that, they were on the schedule, and then I noticed that they were taken off. So I'm glad that we are given the respect to Sheriff Marte as an elected official and as a part of this committee to be able to make his presentation that they worked hard on.
Well, I truly appreciated the presentation last Wednesday at our work session. It's very encouraging. Going to be possible.
TSD has the presentation. They're loading it as we speak. And
excellent.
If the technology gremlins have stayed away today, we should be in good shape.
I would note, I believe Judge Deacock has a time limit, and she has, I think, a class tonight. Are there other things that you want to have any questions for her while she's here?
I would like to go ahead and set up a different day and time to be meeting with this group, because we do want Judge Deacock present. And that's part of the reason that last week that initial cancellation went out.
I guess my first question is, because I'm not clear, as to, at this moment in time, which judicial officers are on this committee? Because I'm a little confused, I have to be honest. The other thing about it is that I also want to make clear that the reason I have not been attending is because I do teach a class typically on Mondays at 4:30. Today, because of circumstances that are happening with that class, it starts today at 6:40, and I was able to attend, which, but I also want to say that the judges who've been in attendance attend and bring the information back to the Board of Judges, and the Board of Judges discusses, and then we just discuss what is happening in the committee and the issues that are going on, and if there is a judicial BOJ response to be made, then we vote on making it. I was at it. I was surprised when I got the email that said that the meeting was rescheduled for today because it was imperative that I was here. Quite honestly, there were judges here, and I don't really consider myself all that important enough to be singled out. But I took it in the spirit of the prosecutor and the public defender and the sheriff and the presiding judge. If we're going to narrow the focus of the committee, I understand that designation. Having said that, because of my teaching schedule, late afternoons are very difficult, if not possible, for me to attend. I can do early mornings, I can do noons, I can even push back some of my schedule enough in advance to be able to go, say, a little bit past 9 o'clock. So I put that out there because in order for me to be able to attend the meetings, the schedule is going to have to be adjusted somewhat, because I won't be able to attend, as I said, in late afternoons or evenings. And I want to make it clear, I haven't attended not because I didn't want to or that I didn't think it was important enough, but the judicial representatives, judicial officers that were here were attending, and when we meet as a Board of Judges, they discuss what happened, or they send out emails about what happened. So discussions were happening that we were all aware of. But if for me to be present, I'm sorry, but I cannot attend at the definitely not the Monday date and time, but typically not late afternoons into evening because of my teaching schedule. So.
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Githens, and I apologize, maybe I don't understand. Are you asking to reschedule one singular meeting, or are you asking that the 13 members who've been 14, who've been on this committee for the past 6 months at this time, that we're going to find a new date for all 14 of us, or 13, whichever ordinance we're applying at the time? Are we talking long-term?
Yes.
And can you help me understand why?
We feel it's important because of her experience, that Judge Dekoff be part of this. And we have also said that it can be one of her designees. If it's better for me to try to do this via a doodle poll rather than doing it tonight, I'm happy to get that out tomorrow. But I would like to know then which judges are going to be representing the judicial branch.
I'm sorry, I think.
I just wanted to add for consideration, if it's a doodle poll or whenever the decision is being made, that we take into consideration both our collective schedules and the opportunity for public to participate, which is difficult in the middle of a work day. I mean, that can be debated, but I just wanted to throw that out there to remind us.
Sure.
And I'm so sorry.
And I'm sorry, I still don't have an answer, I think, to my original question, which is, what was the information that you all needed from Judge Dekoff at today's meeting that meant that we had to cancel it if she couldn't be here? I just wanted to make sure we cover that before she leaves.
Well, we were trying to figure out a time because we did want her here. And then it was quickly brought that she could be here. And by the time we found that she'd be here today, by the time we found that out, we had to schedule it at 5:30 because of the 48-hour notice for the meeting. Otherwise, we would have left it at 4:30.
Then you didn't want us to pull out our calendars and look at a new meeting time right now. You wanted to send out a doodle poll. So I'm just trying to figure out if there's anything that you have as a question for her while she's here, because she's got about 18 more minutes.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us this evening?
No, thank you. I'm interested in the sheriff's presentation.
Okay, let's go. Phil.
Please ensure the presenter uses a microphone so that folks can hear it on Zoom.
Yeah, that's not the issue. The problem is had we known that we're not going to be canceled, we would have this ready for you from before you walked in. But now we're being told, go ahead and do it, so we're trying to set up the PowerPoint right now.
Sure, here we go.
Yeah. We took Saturday and Sunday preparing for this, so we have everything locked in the way they rehearsed it, and I had to change it because it will
I apologize.
throw us
There
off.
was, again, we will get the communication lines sorted out here.
I apologize. We talked to TSD earlier about getting this stuff put together, and we had a plan, and then things changed, so. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk here today.
Could you speak into the microphone just so that people
Yeah,
on Zoom could hear?
for
Thank
sure.
you, Commander Gibbons.
I'm on a corner, I don't have a lot of table.
Thank you.
What we're trying to do today is just give the committee and anybody watching a general idea as to what we've come into, what we're dealing with and moving forward, and something I think is integral into a jail building, things to consider and things to work through until we get to that position. With Sheriff Marte, he specifically ran his campaign on being transparent, being accountable, acknowledges the challenges the community are facing and discussing them with residents. And we're really just trying to gain the public trust. And to do that, you've got to be completely transparent, which this committee has said various times that is what we're really building everything on. So we wanted to take the opportunity to have that conversation and to be open about it and find a way to deal with the current while working for the future.
So in the spirit of transparency, one of the things that I've definitely talked about in my campaign that I wanted to actually increase public safety. But in order to do so, I have to also take consideration what's going on in the current jail at the present time as this committee is preparing to select where you're going to put them to jail, if you do that, or when. we have to be able to take care of the situation that we're facing at the present time, which to me is very crucial. So cleaning the jail is paramount to have a clean environment. I mean, it's just what it is in that arena. To show compassion to the people in there right now has to start with the environment that they live in right now at the present time. To me, it's human dignity or human respect to now allow people to live the way they're living right now. And we'll get into that a little deeper here and show you some pictures so you can see exactly what we're looking at. The only thing that's going to be lacking in what we're about to show you is visual aid, but what's going to be lacking is the smell and the sound. That's crucial. So we're trying to bring the jail to you, but again, the lacking part will be the smell and the sounds of that jail.
Carl and I are going to go back and forth on this, so bear with us here, and we'll try to move quickly. I know when we first talked about, we were talking about about 20 minutes to half an hour, so we're gonna try to do that. Before we go into all this, I know we've got people watching on cats here, so I just want to give a little disclaimer as we move through this presentation. Some of what we're about to show you, if you're out there in TV land, you might want to have some discretion about who you're allowing to see this, because there are things that are going to be shown here that may not be suitable for everybody in their household. So I just want to make that disclaimer up. And as we move through this, I'm going to reiterate that. So I know we had a lot of talk about a new facility. We're not going to talk about a new facility at all here. We're going to talk about the current facility and where we're at. So we got to talk about the present, because if we started slinging dirt today, we're probably 3, 4, or 5 years out. I think we can all agree to that. So we've got to run a constitutional jail. We just do. It's got to be safe, it's got to be clean, it's got to be quiet. We have to be able to, get people to medical appointments, get them to their meals on time, all of those things that go into a jail. So before we move into these pictures here, and I see we're already looking at them here, and we're going to discuss these in detail, I'm going to have the commander talk about the staff here for just a second here, because we got to be very clear on the direction of what we're trying to present here tonight. So if you'll give him about a 2-minute talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's important that we actually state this publicly, because I had this conversation with the staff prior to really coming into this presentation. It's important for them to know that they're appreciated, and the work that they put in daily is unquestionable. Things they deal with and are exposed to, and they remain persistent in taking care of people trying to. I acknowledge that we came out of COVID, and there was a lot of people in the facility, and things didn't move a lot. I mean, the entire country shut down. So there are some things in this that is just a result of just people being stuck in one place. And we're trying to get it opened back up, and we're really trying to clean it up. And I didn't want our staff to feel any type of way about what we're presenting this today, because they're living it too. It's not just the inmates that are living in that condition. We have people coming in and out of the facility every single day. And I just wanted to make that very clear for them.
So what you're going to see here, I'm telling you, you're going to experience a lot of things here. There's going to be shock. There may be some bitterness here. There may be some disbelief. There may be some anger. There may be resentment. There may be sadness. There are lots of things that you're going to see where they're going to bring some emotions to what we're going to talk about here. This first photograph, the reason I wanted to talk is because I took these photographs. This was my second day as chief deputy. So this is the holding cell for people who have recently been arrested. These people have not been convicted of a crime. They were probably brought in hours before I took this picture, and they're being held in a cell before they're classified and moved to a general population, or more than likely released as per the judge's directive. So, we have 9 individuals in here at this point. It's hard to see them all. But what we're going to do is I just wanted to show you this photograph of where they're laying. As you can see, they're laying on the concrete floor. They're laying on concrete benches. There are no pillows, there are no blankets, there are no anything. These people are on the concrete. If we can move to the next photo. This is where we've zoomed in. This is what I wanted to show you. They're using Dixie cups for pillows here. I've showed this photograph to 3 people, and every time I've showed this photograph, as we zoomed in on this, I got gasps of how is that possible. So I want you to think about, you know, these individuals laying on this cold floor, and this is what they had to resort to. If you'll see the floor drain there on the picture on the left there, when I went in there, that floor drain was full of urine. It smelled very strongly because there were some issues with the toilets, and inmates do what they do sometimes, but that had not been cleaned. It was a very strong odor of urine emanating from that. I talked to 3 corrections officers and said, why is this way? And basically, you know, no fault of their own. I cannot emphasize this enough. They only can do what they were trained to do. They said it's always been this way. It's always been this way. So here's what, and I want to get into this a little bit more. I'm trying to move quickly so we don't dwell on things, but here's what they told me too, that as these people were in here, they would crowd the doors and they would ask for toilet paper. So they would hand out toilet paper to them. Well, what they would do is they'd take that toilet paper and they would roll it up into small little pads. And then they would take these toilet paper pads and put them under their hip bones and under their elbows and under their ankles and under their knees to get some relief from that floor, because if you go lay on the concrete floor, you're going to start experiencing pain pretty quickly. Downside of that is, once you shift, they go in there and they would clean out the cell. Guess what? They sweep it out. There go all their pads, and we start this process over again to try to get some relief from this. What I was told is also that sometimes in the past, these people have been in here for days laying here on these floors. The next thing is, they said they had about 4 to 5 incidents of use of force, because as you know, when people go through those things, it can cause some issues, and these holding cells is where they had the most use of force incidents in these cells. Okay, next photo.
I think it's real quick. I think it's important to state that really what this whole thing is predicated on is changing the culture now and not waiting until we build a new facility. To be successful in a new facility, you have to build a foundation. And if we're not aware of the treatments now, it's only going to go with us to a new facility. And that's really what this is about.
Okay, here's where we are now. Immediately before they go into these holding cells now, and hopefully we're going to be able to make some movements in the facility how we do this. But as you can see, they're issued a mat, they're issued a blanket, and this is consistent with every inmate that walks through that door now. We will no longer engage in that practice. The photo on the left shows this was in a very short period of time after the initial photos were taken. The photo on the right shows that we're trying to process those people more quickly, and we don't see as much crowding in there now. And I can't iterate enough how good of a job our prosecutors and our judges do with helping us not fill this thing up. We have a lot of people that we are able to release on their own recognizance, and that helps us keep this down. Fourth photograph here. This is the photograph after we got everybody out of there, and what you couldn't really see in those photographs is how grimy and dirty those walls. And this is the photograph that we took everybody out of there. We cleaned it completely down. We repainted those intakes. We cleaned the drains. We got the toilets so they're operating. And this is now the condition of that. And what I would like to point out to you, does anybody have any idea how long it took us to do that? To clean that whole cell, paint it, and get it looking.
Power wash it?
Power washed it down. 1 hour. It took 1 hour to transform that cell from what you saw to what you see now. So I say that to say this. This is one small step in this facility that we can start moving towards. And when you see what we're going to show here, you're going to understand the need for what we're talking about.
And real quick, as you guys have found through going to other facilities and through conversation, we found out that the intake is one of the most important aspects of any facility. By just changing their arrival, just talking to the inmates are night and day. They're open to now having a conversation and disclosing some things that they're going through. They feel comfortable where they're not laying on the frozen floor, literally freezing. And they're even open to having those conversations. So it was important for us to streamline that process, not just for the law enforcement officers coming in, not just for the staff, for the people. I mean, we call them inmates, we call them residents, we have all these different terms we use, but they're just people. They're people that make mistakes sometimes. They're people that come in on a simple charge of disorderly conduct and never come back. And to be exposed to that, that was one of the first things that Sheriff talked to me about.
And I want to be very clear on this too. Some of these people in our facility are there on very, very violent, crimes that we don't walking around amongst us. We have to acknowledge that part. Whether we agree how we do it or whatever, but there are some very violent people in this facility, but again, they're still people. And once they're in our care and custody. So it's up to us, I believe, to no matter what brought them there, that while they're in our care and custody, that we have certain obligations to them to bring some humanity to this. So we're going to go into the body of these slides. This was just important. This is just, again, where you see the toilet and the drain are now clean. Cleanliness, just that simple act of cleanliness is very, very helpful when you're talking about someone who's going to be in that environment for some time.
And the reason this photo is in here is that you could see the chip tile, you could see the wear in the tile underneath the toilet, and the baseboard. We're not concerned about aesthetics. We're simply concerned with cleaning the facility. That's what it's about.
That is it. Okay, this is a little video we took. We had a pretty good rainstorm here, 2 days ago? This is in the laundry room, and we want to play this video.
It's been dripping like this for a couple of years.
This condition has existed for a couple of years, but we just want to show you in this video very quickly of how it manifested itself. So Matt actually took this video, so he's going to step in and kind of walk you through this. How you play that kind of. Go ahead.
My name's Matt Demings. I'm the assistant jail commander. I was just walking actually to another area that's attached to the laundry room, and when I walked in, there was a trustee who implored me to address the situation. He said that the water had been standing all the way back to the washing machines, which is where you first walk into that room. There were 7 containers trying to collect water. There were 3 on the floor and 4 on top of a dryer. And what I'm showing here is the electrical in that room. There's also a gas line that runs to that dryer. I learned that this is a situation that's gone on for 2 years, and it's deteriorated to this condition. The inmate also told me that the 35-gallon trash can there had been emptied out 3 times. We made contact with their maintenance service. I did, and they had some roofers out that day who put some tar up there. It's still leaking, as I understand it. There may be some residual water for some time. However, we have a real life safety issue here with the inmates. They're just doing their job and doing their work. And as you can see, this is a high voltage area directly behind the dryer. We can't have a situation where we have standing water and an inmate walking into it in this room. Also directly adjacent to this room is a server room where we store a lot of equipment that I'm told by our maintenance personnel is valued at up to, he said, $1 million. I was in there today and it seems to be dry. However, we just wanted to bring this to your attention.
This is the large electrical box that is right behind that dryer where you saw that water dripping down. And obviously our concern is that we all know that water and electricity are really not real good mixes here. So when you've got that water on that floor and you're walking in there, that's just a hazard that we cannot contend with. We just can't. We're putting an awful lot of stock in good luck.
You guys can see here on the photo, that box that he was just showing you, those buckets underneath that are collecting water. It's literally underneath the box. There's an open flame down here because those are gas lines that operate our dryers. And I don't know if you could see it very well, but you could see the amount of water running into that bucket there, and it's literally dripping. You can see it pretty consistently.
And this had been emptied several times that morning. So anyway, okay, on to the next. This photo here, this is the main hallway. And I can tell you, Kyle and I both have experienced this. I'm going to draw your attention to the photo in the right there. It's kind of difficult to see, but you see this little area here of this black thing hanging down. What that is, that's an area underneath of the shower and toilet facility in the inmate worker dorm. And what you don't know and what you can't see here is that drips constantly. And if you're walking down that hallway and you don't know what you're doing, as I didn't on my first day, and Kyle didn't on his first day, and I got a nice big drop of that in my hair, and Kyle doesn't even have hair, so he got a nice drop on it that went down the back of his shirt. So that liquid is leaking out of there, and this black stuff has accumulated, and it looks like a little stalactite hanging there. But that is dripped into the floor, and there's little puddles on the floor. As you can see there at the bottom, right outside of Matt's shoe there, those are constantly full of this liquid that comes out of the shower and toilet area of the inmate worker dorm. And it's been that way for quite some time. You can see up there where there's been silicone put in that crack that it hasn't taken effect. So this is just a pipeline there that just kind of shows you the general deterioration. This window here, what that is, this is a vent. On the outside you have the window. Inside you have, this is inside the jail cell, we have this covering over the cell so that the inmates can't bust out that window or punch it or try to knock that out. So in between there's about a 4-inch shelf, the windowsill, if you will, that entire length of that. And if you look real closely, you can see some debris in there. Well, let me show you what that debris is. That's this, okay? This came out of one of those windowsills, and we've sealed it up really, really good. But that's 30 years, folks, of debris and things that I can't even describe.
I can describe it. I live in there. So what's actually in there, and again, we tried to warn you guys. It's hard to say this. Actually, some of these papers are urine soaked, where inmates urinate through that screen. They push feces through that screen. It's an unbelievable experience. It smells horrendously. And we show you that to tell you this because we're taking all those out and getting them all clean, obviously. I mean, that's...
But here's the issue. That screen doesn't remove. We've got to cut that out with a grinder wheel.
Make sure it doesn't catch fire.
Make sure it doesn't catch on fire, then take it out, and then somehow engineer so we can put that back, because we can't have, you know, the possibility that they get something and bust out those windows. But the other side of that is, they weren't designed to ever be cleaned. You know, I don't know how we do that, but there are numerous windows.
Every window.
Every window contains this.
Do you want me to pass this around?
Yeah, does anybody want to see this? We even sprayed it down with Lysol, so you can pass it around and look at it. So anyway.
Don't touch it. It's secure, it won't open.
Yeah, it's secure. We promised we wouldn't bring that in here. But I will tell you this, you see how squeamish we are about it? This is where people are living. This is, if we don't do that to ourselves, why do we do it to them? Not only that, there are air vents that are right up above those windows. That air comes down, grabs that, and blows out. If you walk in and the light is hitting that right, you can see the particles in the air. Okay? All right. This is the air handling system. Kyle, you want to handle this? You know more about this than me.
And some of this is, as most of you know, the first, second, and third floors share ventilation in that building. The fourth and fifth floor are independent, but anything that happens on our first floor in that facility is going up into the courts, is going up into other offices, and we're all sharing that same air. And I can tell you, I'm new here, obviously, but every time I leave on a Friday, it takes Saturday and some of Sunday before I can start breathing again. And I'm stuffed up today, if you can't hear it, because I've just been in there today. It's incredibly difficult. So again, here's some more photos of the ventilation. The one on the left, inmates block, because it gets cold. And what happens is, if we don't have staff constantly staying on that, it diverts air to different places, makes some places hotter, makes some places colder. So anything that you guys have experienced in the courts with hot or cold, that's part of it. So we've gone through and had to clean a bunch of that up. Again, that picture on the left is where inmates have blocked the intake and the cold air coming in, or the air coming in. Again, picture on the right is just maintenance, lack of maintenance.
These are some of the walls in the blocks in the day rooms. I wish I could tell you what that is. It may be chili, it may be coffee. We don't know what that is, but what I will tell you, I don't know what it is, but I know what it can't come off. We can't get it off. If you see in this first photo, the photo on the bottom left, you'll see some that's lighter. That's where we've tried to scrub it off the walls, and it will not come off. It's stained and embedded into the concrete block. The most frequent question that our corrections officers get asked is, what time is it? And this is why. There's not a clock in there that works. And I just want you to, put yourself in, you're in a place where you don't know if it's daytime or nighttime. You have families. I want to, is now a good time for my wife to call, my brother to call, my mother to call? So we allow them to lose all sense of what's going on in the outside world if we don't even have an operating clock for them. This is a table that, from what I understand, was that way for about 8 years. If you can see that seat, it's very dangerous. It was so dangerous that we removed that whole apparatus. It's a very sharp edge on that one seat. We're trying to move quickly here. This is a shower and a drain. Why would a plunger be in the shower? The reason that plunger is in the shower is when the inmates shower there, the drain is so slow that they have to constantly plunge the drain so that the water doesn't build up and spill over and cross the threshold. So they have to keep that plunger there, and they will. They'll while they're showering, they're also plunging to keep the shower. If the other drain over there is kind of hard to see. You can see it up there. Those have to be taken out to be cleaned. So you'll see drains like that throughout the shower or throughout the facility that just haven't been cleaned in a long, long time. And they will not drain. Just some more pictures of the shower. If you look there on the left, you'll see where the protective part of the shower is separated from the wall. water gets behind that, and it gets, you'll see it's real black and pretty smelly too.
And this is where we had issues with the water coming down into the courts in the past. They've tried to everything they can to fix it. Some of this is beyond repair, which is why we're talking about a new facility, but some of it you gotta at least bandage, or I'd say it'll continue to go down into the courtrooms.
Just more of the showers, and I just, again, I would ask you, put yourself in there. It's just not pleasant. These are the ceilings up in the shower. You can see the vents, and all this is just deteriorated to the state where it's just about to rust through. That's mold up in the corners of some of these cells. We try to remove that as best we can, but it's prevalent.
Well, and to remove mold, as some of you might know, you have to scrape it and then clean it and then paint it with a sealant and then actually paint it. Or else it'll come back, and we all know the effects of mold, especially in a confined area.
Anybody care to guess what's coming out of that vent? If you can, let me know, because we don't know what that is. But it's about 4 feet, goes all the way down the wall. We have no idea what that is, but we've tried to work on it and clean it up. So this is the typical cell here up at the top left. Just obviously things that we've got to clean up. The commode facility there on the right, you'll see that pretty often. The one I really want to bring your attention to is the one on the lower left. That is what we call a bean hole. And that is what every inmate up to this point receives their meal through. So you take your food, you pull that bean hole down, and you serve their meal through that door. And over the years, without cleaning, without maintenance, they have become so, I don't know what the word is, but so grimy and sticky and just covered with food that's been spilled and drink that's been filled, and we really got to make a concerted effort to sanitize that.
Also, and I know some of these photos are alarming, these were day one of me coming in. Myself, the sheriff, the chief deputy, and the assistant jail commander walked through every single cell of the facility. We brought a crime scene photographer with us to take these photos. The cells and the things that we could change, we burned through our budget trying to just get things livable. So I know that some of you are alarmed when you see this. It doesn't look, there's not just trash all about. We've done as much as we can. So
all this stuff has been removed. That trash no longer exists. Just wanted to give you an idea what it was day one. This is obviously a toilet in the female section, and those are feminine pads that this inmate had put on there that has been there for so long because she was trying to sanitize her restroom area, and they've deteriorated to that condition. This one here, I would be very careful. You've reminded me I said too much on this one. This is in the inmate workers dorm. There are about 20 to 24 inmate workers. So there's, as you can see, there's 2 toilet facilities. The one had, this one toilet we know has been down for at least a year. So we have 20 individuals now, one toilet, which is way out of the jail standards. It's 1 per 12. But we've got this toilet fixed. But when we took that bag off, I can tell you it wasn't clear water. It had been used and left for about a year. And when that bag came off, everybody cleared the room. But what I would tell you, there were individuals that have been living in there dealing with that odor for some time. I'm not going to say too much. This is, I wanted to put these, it's really hard to show this in a picture, but let's go to that lower left. That is grime and buildup that has built up over years and years and years. And I made the mistake when I first saw that of just putting my foot down there and rubbing through it, and it's a very crusty, crunchy substance that is developed where it's been wet, it's dried, it's been wet, it's been dried, it's been dust, and it's all been pushed to the sides. And that is in every hallway, every cell, every entryway, every stairway. This surrounds every wall, everywhere there's a wall, that exists. Now, we've done a lot of work to try to get a lot of it up, but we are still way behind the curve on that, way behind.
And we actually went to Clark County and asked to use some of their equipment because it's very expensive. So we're trying to get the tools that we need to remediate some of these issues without spending an extensive amount of money. Well, so this is the same floor that we're talking about throughout the facility. That's the same food port that everything comes through. I think that, and again, this has been rectified, but the thing that sticks out to me is the water to the left, because the water wasn't working in the cell at the time. And that water was left there to give to inmates upon request, because the staff was just trying to make sure people had water. They were taking it from other parts of the facility. They were trying to ensure that everybody had access to basic human rights. And I mean, I'm not drinking that water.
That's potable water?
Huh?
That's drinkable water?
That's drinkable water. And that speaks volumes to me because it looks like that's not even the United States of America. It looks like I didn't know what I was coming into, to be honest. And it's upsetting, it's troubling, looking myself in the mirror at the end of the night, just thinking about stuff like that. And I'm not going to go into all of that, but it's rough.
This is where, some time back, inmates had, from what I understand, and please give us a little latitude, a lot of this is stuff that we're asking questions about and what we've been told. I can't tell you the absolute facts. What I was told about this is that we had some of the residents that got a blanket and put a bunch of books in it and just started beating the wall, and they beat the blocks out of it. And this was the repair job, and that repair job has been for some time, but I went up to that. And I don't know if they put a different coating on the outside of it, but I could take my fingernail and drag some of that filler off. So I don't know if there's hardened concrete behind it, but again, it just, we put the Band-Aid on it, but we didn't really fix that, I guess what I would say. I think there's another photo of that too. Okay, you need to handle this too.
When we were short-staffed and overbooked, I'll use those terms, these are boats, we call them boats. They're basically beds, removable beds that we can move throughout the facility. And they were covered with food and blood and a brown matter. I don't even know what it is. We purchased a power washer and we cleaned them all up. But that's what we were expecting. And I actually can't even articulate what it looked like on the inside of those. I wish I would have got some more photos. He asked me to take photos, but I was intent on just getting things clean and moving, keeping people moving forward. So I actually didn't get photos of that, but there's holes in each of them that allow for water to drain through if something gets wet in there. And they were packed with dead skin cells, hair, food, whatever else. And I talked about it in a couple meetings, but the facility itself was locked down essentially for 23 hours a day. So these people, everything we're showing you guys, it looks bad, but they're in cells as big as this hole in the middle of these tables, confined to that. So we did our best to open it up. Staff is working incredibly hard and making sure they're being fluid in the operation. We're trying to implement things, and they're excited. Staff is extremely excited about moving forward. And
I want to take you back to the one photo where you saw all the trash on the floor. That cell is, like you said, about the size of this. And these individuals were confined to that cell anywhere from 22 to 23 hours per day, every day. Every day. That was their life. That's where they lived. Okay, I'm gonna make this disclaimer again because it's about to get real. If you think what you've seen so far is shocking, so if you're out there on cats, I can't tell you enough. Please use discretion on who's going to be viewing about what we're to put up here. Okay, this is one of our corrections officers, and you can't see this, but he's scrubbing the wall with a toilet brush. And what he's trying to do is remove graffiti and other items from the wall. And that's the only tool he had at his disposal. It was a toilet brush. I put this in here for many reasons. One, to show you that we're trying to keep this stuff off the walls, but this is how dedicated these guys are. He only had a toilet brush, but he went to work with it. And you're going to see why he was going to work here in just a second.
Well, and also, it's important to notice, and we've only had a few slides on, I know this is taking a little bit. You see his eyes are squinted. It's because if you've ever tried to clean something with a toilet brush that's not a toilet down, and you're trying to take that substance and you're moving it across, it splashes on you. And that isn't a clean toilet brush. And those gloves are only what they are. I mean, there's not much more protection. I mean, that's dedication to me. That's somebody, and that's not just him, it's everybody.
This personifies what these guys do every day. Okay, this is a door that's on, and believe me, we limited these photos because this is everywhere in this facility. This is not on there with, this is scratched into the door. So you can paint that door all day long, 15 coats, that's not coming out because it's etched into the door. That has to be ground down and completely down to the surface and repainted. So it's just part of the graffiti that we're about to show you.
You don't want me to say these things, do you?
No, please. Okay. I want you to look at this one, and again, we're not going to get into a descriptive matter, but if you just view that, it'll come to you. You'll figure it out.
Can we just turn that?
Okay, yep. Come touch on this one.
And I don't know how into this culture everyone is, but the anarchy symbol means just that. It's a revolt against conformity. That symbol is everywhere. It's a revolt against anything that stands for government or your prototypical, any belief that you may have, they want complete devastation. And that's kind of the mentality of the inmate population because that's what they're living in. And they feel as if they're living in that, then nobody else deserves anything.
Speaks for itself. Just a little more graffiti, but it gets worse. I wanted this one because whoever this person was, we'll never know who it was because this stuff is everywhere. But whoever wrote it, the state of the mind, it shows the state of a mind of a person that's in here. But what it also does, the next person in there, don't you think that will add to their state of mind? And the next person in there, and the next person in there. But we allow it to stay there. And again, I'm going to talk about this briefly when we finish up. It was a very telling photograph for me.
I don't want to do this.
Yeah, Okay, we all know what that symbol is. That's not just one occasion, but it's there. I want you to think about the people that come in and out of that cell that's exposed to that. It's just there. Okay, we're going to, hold on. This next one here, before we go on, here's what I tell you. There's no amount of scrubbing. There's no amount of anything we can do that will remove that, other than going through it, painting it, covering it up. You can't cover up that kind of, you cannot remove that kind of stain. So we're gonna click on this next slide here, and then we're gonna turn this over to the sheriff here, because we got one more slide, and this will finish our presentation. Now this one here, I want to comment on very briefly. If you see in the middle of that, the anarchy sign appears. So what that is saying is that is an absolute sign of anarchy to any person of color. So what we have here, so we have corrections officers that go in there. We have inmates that go in there. We don't know who's going to be assigned. We can't. This kind of stuff is in the facility. It just is. So I want you to think about, Barry Greens, who's a corrections officer of color in our facility. He sees that every day. Sheriff?
So as the staff mentioned, we took a tour of that jail and we went to every single cell. And that took quite some time. And I could tell you what was helpful was the tremendous amount of help that the prosecutor's office and the judges do each day by keeping the numbers down in that jail. I couldn't tell you if they did not do that, what we'll be facing right now. One of the instructions that I gave to our team is that we gotta move fast. And I have to say, I've been accused of that. And I hope people understand why I'm moving so fast, because when I'm told you're moving too fast, I take an issue to that. I truly do. Because when I see that word, I took it personal. Very personal. Because the way if you see me, I'm a black male, Latino male, and when I see something like that is throughout the jail, I cannot move slow. But I was not given a chance to explain to people why I cannot move slow. That's the reason why. Why I want to be able to paint and clean, that's the reason why. Why I'm taking it personal, that's the reason why. So, I cannot do this by myself. I need support. Simple as that. I need support. Because that verbiage right there, combined with the swastika, combined with anarchy, we have a recipe that could really take off in that jail at any given time. And it's not fair to the staff members in there that are doing the very best they can with the little that they have right now. And when I say to you, they're working very hard, I mean they're working very hard. I asked them to do that and they're doing it. But it's not fair to them and all the residents that live in that establishment not to have it clean. I can't explain to you how I felt that Monroe County, a staff member of Monroe County, had to go to another county and borrow their equipment. We did it because we needed to get this stuff done now. I didn't have the luxury of people telling me, you're moving too fast, and or this is not the way it's done. I will follow the proper procedures that you want me to follow. I have no problem with that. But you have to understand from our point of view, from our lens, now that you see this, quite frankly, it's just not acceptable. No one should live in this type of conditions, no one. And when I say to you that I cannot bring the smell or the sound, I mean that. One of the things that was very particular to me when we took a tour, because I try to take a tour of that jail every single day I can, because I want the morale of those people in there to be high, because we're asking them to do a lot of things for us. And it's very dangerous, very dangerous. But one of the things that I try to do is really go ahead and put myself in that situation. I could come back and articulate to you and show you why we do what we do. So, all I want to do is take care of this issue, what I'm looking at right now, that you see right now, which means I am not trying to remodel. I want to really put that to rest this evening. I am not trying to remodel. I'm not trying to fix it. Because when I'm told that the money we could use to fix this could be used at the new jail, we could do both. We have the capability of doing both. If I could ask the staff to really turn this around for us, which is going to take time, I have to have support. I just have to. So at this point, when you hear us hesitating what to say, it's because from day one, when we stepped foot into that jail, we knew, and when we saw, just like the jail commander said, we have to look ourselves in the mirror and sleep at night. And I'll be honest with you, I've been having a hard time doing that, based on what the condition, what these people are living in right now, and our workers. It's difficult, and I implore you that we need help. Simple than that, I don't know how to say it. We need your support and help on this. And now that you see this, and I'm repeating myself, the only thing you don't have is the smell and the sound. But that word right there, Bloomington, Monroe County could do better than that. We gotta remove that, and we have to paint over that. And if it happens again, we paint over that again. There's one thing that I could tell you as an instructor, when I was with the Indiana State Police, we knew that if a street gang member marked up a street and you didn't remove that, you will have issues. Doesn't mean it changes inside the jail. Just means they're more confined. It's more dangerous.
And here's the good news, that once it's removed, once it's cleaned up, once it's painted over, we can hold people accountable for it. Right now, you mark on that wall, who did it? We can, I've been to other jails where we've removed this stuff, and there's not one single mark on the wall. It's clean, it's clear, none of this stuff exists, but you have to start, and then you hold people accountable. And the first time something like it appears, you send a work crew in, you paint it up, and the folks that are responsible for it, there are consequences inside the facility and the administrative rules where you deal with that. But there's no starting point right now for us with the whole jail covered with it.
That concludes our presentation. I really hope that the time that we took to put this together resonates with this group, because this, if we don't take care of this, it will get worse. And it's not a number. It's not that a lot of inmates in that jail, because the prosecutors and again the judges took care of that. The numbers are low. Now it's our job to step up and do the right things here. We have to do the right things for the right reasons. Simple as that. If there's any questions of us? It is a lot. It is. Imagine how we feel.
Thanks for taking that.
We're very grateful to allow this time.
I was in the back, sorry.
Yeah.
Multitasking. I watched your presentation that you gave to the commissioners at the work session, and I want to thank you for all the work you're doing. But it sounded to me like you were not allowed to remodel or not allowed to spend any money fixing up the jail, which maybe you can't answer, but if we're talking about not building another jail for 3 to 5 years, how do you see that going? The building is not going to get better, obviously.
Well, that is the whole point of this presentation, is that we could do both at the same time. As a committee, we're trying to plan for the future. I'm concerned with the present as we speak right now. As we're in this room, there are residents in that jail right now. And that's my concern, that we have to make things, improve things quickly. And I'll say it again, because when I heard it the first time, the second time, that you're moving too fast, I'm thinking, wow. So I had to change course and show you why I'm moving fast, why I'm asking the staff to do something that really, how do I say this, is not fair to them. That we have to move this fast and rectify a problem that took time to get to this level.
Also, and you might not know because I know you're new, but do you know if an environmental study's been done, or if you've asked the commissioners to do one? Because some of the pictures you showed were pretty terrible, as far as air quality and that sort of thing, and the electrical and the water. And the mold.
I agree. I wanted to show this first. Someone used the phrase, press the restart button, and I will hope that in the spirit of teamwork, we could come together and get this done. I just can't see why we couldn't do it, because there's people's lives at stake right now.
I think one of the things we're asking is that
Could you speak into the mic? Sorry, thank you.
As we sit here there's 70 years of law enforcement experience between the two of us. Unfortunately, I'm the one that got 40, he's got 30. But I guess we're asking for the confidence that when we come to this group and say, here's what we're asking for, that there is a stipulation that we're not asking for wants, we're asking for needs. And I promise you, with everything that's within our hearts, that we would never do that. We're not going to ask for some fancy thing to go in there that makes us feel good. We commit to each of you that if we ask you, it's for a need. And as you can see, those needs are great. And so I guess that's what we're asking for, is that nobody knows this, but we do. We see it. We want to verbalize it, and now we all know. So just know that we're concentrating on what we need here in this facility and not what we want.
Well, the chief deputy is saying 100% correct. For us to ask another department, another sheriff department for equipment for this jail to clean it up, that says a lot, I hope. I hope that says a lot. And I'm gonna push back a little bit. Do I need that removed? Yeah. Do I want that removed? Oh, yes. So here, I need it and I want it removed. Because if we do not, what are we saying? What message are we saying for a person that comes into our system that actually truly needs help, and they see that? And now we're saying, okay, we're going to try to help you with programs, and then you go back to your cell and you see that.
It's almost laughable to say we're gonna put you into this program for anger management or whatever, and then we turn around and shove them right back into that. What are we saying to them? Is this just an exercise that you're going through here? You can't get anybody to heal or start thinking about the future or what I've got out in front of me when this is what they're exposed to every day. That's all that's in their heads.
Judge, I could kind of answer your question in terms of previous studies. They have done them. They have cleaned it up. This is a continual maintenance thing. That's mostly what this is. In terms of, and I was on the committee you guys spoke of earlier that talked to the different groups that are coming in, and they spoke of awesome things that I think that would help everybody in this community, not just the inmate population, not just the staff. And these are things we want to implement. But like he said, you can't wait to do the right thing, essentially. And just like what you're getting at, we are on those. We're actually waiting the return of one study we've done. So we're getting ahead of it, but that's just, the process.
And I will point out that last week we did approve changes to your Sally port, which,
yes,
again, were not cosmetic. In fact, I went over there and had it explained to me, so I had a much better understanding of what was needed. For me, this has brought other things to light. I know that many of us have been on tours of the jail. We were never shown these types of things.
We took you on the real tour tonight. And the sheriff has used those words. This is the real tour.
When I hear people say they took in the tour, and I kind of cringe, because how do you politely say, no, you did not? So we had to really brainstorm, and this is the reason why I want to show this to you this evening, because now you have seen the tour. The only thing that I regret, I cannot bring the smell or the sound. If you add all those three elements, it will give you the actual true tour that you should have been given, or was not.
I think that at the next meeting, we will show our presentation on Arizona, and we were we were asked not to take pictures that we shared publicly with the inside of the facilities that we saw, but one of the facilities that we saw had people inside, and we saw nothing like what you're showing us tonight. And I know that several of us have gone up to Hamilton County and seen things there. We've been to Vigo County and others, not seen anything like we've seen tonight, which is very disturbing to me personally.
We're going to commit to you that with your all support, we're going to come back in as quickly as you can, and we're going to show this same presentation to you, and you're going to see a much, much different view of this. But we, again,
with support.
With support.
With support, yeah.
We know, we're very confident that after we saw the real tour here, that we were going to be able to agree on how we need to tackle this. So.
Can I say one other thing? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I just really like to thank you for doing that because my office this week has been 65 degrees and I can't imagine how cold that floor would be. So just the blankets and the pads and the cleaning, I appreciate it.
Well, I think it's, go ahead. We were scheduled to end tonight at 7 o'clock with a lot of other things thrown in. And so I think we will reconvene.
Oh, wait, I have one more thing. I'm sorry. Before Judge Dekoff left, she said that she had asked you which judges you'd liked on the committee. You had not answered that. If it's something you'd like the Board of Judges to, but I personally would like more clarity on why you feel it's necessary. Because the three of us have put in six months of, we've gone on jail tours, we've done separate meetings where we've talked about issues on the jail. So to me, the timing was interesting. The lack of clarity, lack of communication was interesting. I didn't even know that we were changing the composition of the committee. So I would like to know more on that, please.
Well, it doesn't mean that through whoever is here to represent that those same ideas and voices can't be heard. We're just trying to speed up the process, make it faster. We have to move forward. We don't have a choice, and things have kind of drug on, and we want to move that forward.
I would like to briefly respond and state that I also want to respect Arlene as the judicial branch and recognize that Judge Dekoff, as our presiding judge under our local rules, is the one who picks the judges who serve on outside committees. So I certainly think she'd be happy to hear what the commissioners prefer in terms of which judges appear on this committee. But I would also say that that's her responsibility, and our Board of Judges elects her to make those decisions. And I don't want to muddy the waters between lanes, as it were. I also want to state that she texted me just after she left to say, please state that she didn't want to interrupt the sheriff's presentation before I left. But as April pointed out, I did not ask, nor do I expect the meeting time to be changed because of my schedule. So I wanted to share that with Judge Dekoff as well.
Thank you.
And I also attempted to reach out to you, Commissioner Gibbons, about a week and a half ago to see if we could talk, and I did not hear a response.
I texted you back.
I did not get a text back.
I guess also, since we're talking about transparency, at your meeting this week, you said that someone suggested that we change the composition. Can you tell me who that is?
It was a general discussion that we were trying to, like I said, make this more efficient.
Between the commissioner, just the commissioners?
Yes, okay. And others.
And others?
And I know it's 7 o'clock, but I think there are people here in the audience and I'm sure online on Zoom. So I would ask that I have time to stay and make sure that the public is heard. And so I guess I would move that we extend our meeting time for public comment.
And I would second that.
We don't take motions. We're not following Robert's Rules of Order.
So then if we don't, then if you guys leave, since technically, according to the rules, or according to the ordinance, whichever one, again, as we are trying to figure out, if you all have to leave, and whoever is the presiding chair of this particular committee, if you leave, that's fine. There's more of us that are here, plus, not to put you on the spot, but it also says that the co-chair of this is county council. In this case, it would be Councilor Iverson. So I would propose that these folks and folks that are online not have their time wasted, that they've been here. We had to hear that presentation, and I'm damn glad, excuse my French, that we heard that today, because we needed to hear that. Because at the end of the day, I'm looking at everybody that can go home tonight. I'm looking at all of us that can go home tonight. And I can't get those images out of my head. And I can't get the fact that we have people that are probably here that have been formerly incarcerated, that we also have people that are having families that have gone through this, that are probably still in there. Only imagining, and not just inmates and families alone, but our staff that are in there and breathing this and seeing how we are one step away from a big cluster suck. So, what I am asking, more so what I am demanding at this moment and at this time, is to have folks that are here to say what they have to say, and anybody else that is majority, that is not a majority, can go ahead about their evening. Just as much as I want to go home and I have another meeting to go to and family to go to, I think it is my obligation and duty and privilege as an elected official, as some of us as well, to hear from our public. It is something that we need to hear. It is something that we've done this entire time, and I don't think it's a good idea for us to stop this now.
I am not trying to silence anyone. This meeting was noticed for 5:30 to 7. When we shifted to have the sheriff's presentation, which I am equally glad that we did, I was told it was 20 to 25 minutes, which would not have run into public comment time. I'm trying to balance a lot of things with a lot of people.
I understand.
And we had the option of asking the sheriff's group to stop after 20 to 25 minutes, but like you probably, I felt what they were saying was so important that everyone needed to hear it. Everyone, they needed to see those visuals. They needed to try to imagine what that odor was that Sheriff Marte has been talking about.
Don't you think that it would be a good idea to listen to public? Don't you think that it would be the greater body of this committee, all three of you, all of us that are here, all of y'all that probably want to go home just as well as everybody else wants to go home, to stop going back and forth and just allow like 20 minutes of 3 minutes per person to come in here, as it was previously discussed on the agenda, the final agenda that we had. I think it is our obligation and it is our duty. And it is silencing us, or them, and somewhat us too. If we just decide to just shut our doors, turn off our computers, leave the Zoom chats, and just go home. I can sit around and talk to people, but I don't think that they just want to talk to just myself or Sheriff Marte, or maybe just you alone. I think that it is our duty for all of us to sit here, just like we heard that presentation, just as a Black woman, as I sat here and saw that the swastikas and the N-word, I think it is time for us to sit in our uncomfortableness and start listening to people, because if we don't, things will have to change.
I'm happy to stay.
And I think that people have been listened to as well at other meetings.
I don't think we're being listened to right now.
I feel the same way.
Well, that makes two of us.
This was posted for 7.
I wonder if Ms. Tracy could weigh in on whether if a meeting is noticed to start at a particular time and end at a particular time, if it goes over, if that's a problem. And if so, I would guess the city council has some reading to do.
Happy to scoot aside and give this seat for the first person for public
We
comment.
wasted like 7 minutes of our time, which could have went to 2 or 3 people already.
No, let's just stop at 7:30. We have to.
Okay, we will extend this till 7:30. We also have a lot to prepare for. Is there, if someone comes up, would you please state your name and whether or not you are a resident of Monroe County?
I'll note also a couple people on Zoom have their hands up, just so we make sure not to miss them too.
I appreciate that, Judge Fawcett. Time limit of 3 minutes.
My name is Seth Muchler. I am a resident of the county. I want to start by thanking the presenters for sharing today. It's an incredible lot to take in, and I will need some time to process that, so I won't be commenting on your presentation today, but please know that I will be thinking of it a lot, and I will be commenting later, but I want to thank you for doing what you can to make the conditions better. I have become struggled in this issue because I feel strongly that incarceration is not the answer to our community's problems, and I want to see a radical shift towards treatment, compassion, empathy, and understanding that systemic issues and generational trauma creates cycles of incarceration that are harmful to the individual and the community. In short, I believe in care, not cages. I believe that many of the members of this advisory committee share my viewpoints, and although we may differ on some of the specific details and paths towards that, I truly believe some of you and I share the same end goal. I don't see that goal being worked towards, though, and not for the lack of effort of county council members, judges, and their colleagues, but because, to put it bluntly, because of the county commissioners. And it is so disheartening to see the conversation shift from how to affect real change in our community to Commissioner Jones getting defensive yet again and Commissioner Thomas talking about staying in our lanes. I hope you see my conflict here. I want to talk about the real issues, but I feel like I can't stay silent. I want to talk less about the not cages half, and I want to focus on the goals of investing in care in our community, but I felt forced to have all of my energy go towards just trying to stop this metaphorical train from derailing. In my opinion, the commissioners have made it apparent that they are set on hindering process towards the aforementioned shared goals. Instead, they for some reason have developed a tunnel vision on building a new jail way outside of town, despite the recommendations of the reports commissioned by the county, despite community input, and despite this very advisory body asking them to slow down and reconsider. So what do? To start, I am calling for the removal of Commissioner Jones as chair of this committee, and that position be given to a member other than a county commissioner. It is clear to me that different leadership is required. The health department and judges' voices, as we know, the county commissioners are planning on Wednesday to ratify an amendment to Monroe County Code Chapter 457, which outlines the membership of this committee and are removing the representative from the health department as well as 2 judges. The health department and judges' voices are crucial, but I fear you only see them as dissenting voices to Commissioner Jones and Thomas's runaway train. I see this as a squashing of democratic discourse and am simply offended. As such, I am calling for the amendment to Chapter 457 to not be ratified as written. These actions most likely won't solve all the problems this committee is having, but my hope is that with some changes around here, we, and I say we because I see the public having a seat at this table as well, with some changes around here, we can stop fighting and start to make some changes out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Could we have one of the people that is coming in on Zoom next? We'll alternate. TSD.
Mr. Duggar has his hands up. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, my name is Kyle Duggar. I'm a Monroe County resident. I've been a deputy public defender for the last 7 years, but I'm not speaking in that capacity. I'm just speaking as a citizen of Monroe County. I felt compelled to make public comment tonight. I had written something that I wanted to read for the committee. I'm throwing that totally out because most of it was, I wanted to applaud the sheriff for his basically trying to bring to the committee the immediacy of the problem that exists in the jail right now. And I don't think we could have done a better job than with that presentation. It's kind of bittersweet for me, though. It is a profound vindication to have law enforcement or the custodians of the jail acknowledge the horrific conditions that are there, because those are things that have been obfuscated, and I know they're not allowed to say it, but I'll say it. The jail has obviously been horrifically mismanaged for years, if not decades, and now he is trying to come in and clean up this mess. Every single one of my clients' complaints that have come to me has been corroborated. I was going to tell you that there are people who are booked in and not given a bed or water for days, or put in a room with a toilet that won't flush that has feces in it and have to live in there with the smell, or to have feces and urine and vomit spread on the walls. All of those things are true and have been happening for a long time. And while everyone fantasizes about this fictional 5-year jail that may exist somewhere out in the county, which is a bad idea, these things are still happening, and I appreciate so much that they brought that to the committee. There are other immediate things that we can do, though. There are apart from the restoration efforts that he's undertaking, the cleaning efforts, just providing, we can mandate that people have to be given, basic toiletries and necessities when they come into our jail, that you get soap, that you get a toothbrush when you come in, because those things aren't a given. It is brought to my attention there are still some things that I honestly don't know if the sheriff's had the opportunity to even review them. People are charged from their commissary accounts to be seen by the nurse in jail. So if you report a medical problem, you have to make the choice whether or not you want to have 5 minutes you can talk to your family member or your loved ones on the jail call, or you can be seen by the nurse. And if you don't have money on your books and you get seen by the nurse, you get a debit, and if a family member comes and puts money on your account, then it gets taken. So you can't even make your calls anymore after that. These are simple things that we could do right now that don't require a new building to make the jail more humane, more habitable. And if you treat people like animals, if you treat people horribly, then that's how I would act if I was treated that way. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Duggar. Who's next here in the room?
Good evening, Kaisa Goodman, Public Engagement Director for the City of Bloomington and resident of Monroe County. On behalf of the city and our 85,000 constituents, we reiterate our desire to help advance the cause of justice reform quickly and aggressively, and to urge the deployment of the county's resources to address the mental health and substance use disorder crisis we see in our community every day. I ask the commissioners to reconsider changing the membership of the CJRC. The ordinance itself says that additional scope and membership is needed to ensure a comprehensive approach to addressing the needs found in justice reports. While the CJRC composition is legally within the commissioner's purview, I have heard many members of this advisory committee request additional information and perspectives so that they may best fulfill their obligation of advising our community on justice reform. To disregard the advice of this advisory committee while expecting real progress is counterintuitive to me. I believe that it's critical, for example, to keep the health department at the table and to add other voices that are missing. I was also disappointed today that the update on the existing jail was removed from the agenda with very little notice, and I'm glad that Sheriff Marte and his team were able to present today. I think we were all moved by the presentation and horrified by what we saw. It was hard to watch, but I think it's critical that we be fully informed on the current status of the jail, both the conditions and the building, so this committee can make the most informed decisions. And I thank the team at the jail, led by Sheriff Marte, for their sobering presentation today and the work that went into it. I'll close by quoting the mayor's recent comments in the Herald Times. This public dialogue should be about much more than a jail. We need community justice reform in our community and our larger society. We incarcerate more people than virtually any country on the planet, often in terrible conditions. As a community, we have an opportunity to do something that raises our quality of justice. Including the whole community in that effort is smart, and lowering the need for incarceration, one person at a time, one program at a time, can improve families and our community immeasurably. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Is there another person on Zoom? I don't have a screen in front of me. Okay, next.
Hello, my name is Dominic Thompson. I am a resident of Monroe County. I wanted to start my comments by thanking most of the members of this committee for your commitment to transparency and to inclusivity, especially Councilmember Crosley and Ms. Wilson, who's sitting behind me. Unfortunately, I cannot say that about the county commissioners, who have made it very blatant that they do not want transparency nor inclusivity. Not only have you ignored this committee that is supposed to be advising you on this matter about including more voices from the city, which makes up most of the county, you also are looking to move this committee to a time that most people cannot come and make public comment, especially given the backlash that you have all faced given your role in this committee. I also wanted to address Sheriff Marte's presentation, which has left me very shaken by how inhumane the conditions are with our county jail currently. I don't know how as county commissioners you can refuse to work with the sheriff to create a better, more humane jail while we wait for a new jail to be created. I don't know how you can refuse to do that and still not see yourselves as part of the problem. I just wanted to finish up by once again thanking the members of the committee that have really focused on allowing transparency in this process and being inclusive. And I just wanted to thank particularly Member Crosley and Sheriff Marte for standing up today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here to read remarks from Monroe County Democratic Party Chair David Henry because he had to leave for a class due to the change in time. I'm not going to introduce myself as David, so we're just going to skip that part. Much has been made over a metaphor these past few weeks about the role of government officials in our shared work for restorative justice, that you all are operating within lanes. I'd like to add some insight to that cliche. The lanes that you all you all share sit on a highway provided by the voters in our community. And the on-ramp to that highway to be a decision maker was provided by the Democratic Party as our nominee, which I believe everyone around this table belongs to. I know it's customary for office holders who run as our nominee and win an election, then to take the oath that they serve the whole community, not just the Democratic one. I agree with this sentiment in principle. But in practice, voters picked a platform too, a vision they believe we all shared. That platform includes a vision for 21st century criminal justice reform. So on behalf of the over 20,000 Monroe County Democratic voters in our community, I'd like to offer to the record a summary of our Democratic Party platform. In short, our party now stands for an overhaul of the criminal justice system from top to bottom, an end to police brutality, an end to structural and systemic racism in our criminal justice system and our society, a stop to incarcerated kids in developing community-based alternatives to prison and detention and community centers for our youth, and implement and training and education for judges, corrections officers, prosecutors, public defenders, and police officers to ensure transgender and gender nonconforming people receive equitable treatment. A brief that no one should be imprisoned solely because they use drugs. A return to community policing approaches with social workers and mental health and substance use counselors. The elimination of cash bail. No one should be imprisoned merely for failing to pay fines or fees. I could go on, but I don't have enough time. That is our party in 2023. That is the expectation. We are a party that believes in redemption and a pathway to a new life with the balance of justice restored. And I believe that vision is shared by many at this table. Critically, we cannot simply deliver that vision where the lifelines for altering sentencing for nonviolent offenses to behavioral and public health interventions for public transportation, for access to families. I know I'm out of time. There's more, and I will have David send the rest to you for that. But I wanted to remind you all at this table what your platform is.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening. I'm Pamela Davidson, and I live in the county. I agree with so much that I've heard here tonight. The condition of the jail is horrific. Dickens would recognize that. I'm so glad you're attacking it. Cleanliness, we owe that population so much more. I agree we are jailing far, far too many people for stupid things that taxpayers do not want to pay for and only creates animosity and anger among people of peaceable nature who would never pose any danger to the public safety. As to the location of the jail, Today on 1A, one of the programs, they talked about Rikers. If you listened, one of the guys who called in or sent a text message, he had worked in incarceration for 30 years. He said, we are jailing far too many people. Our problems are poverty, homelessness, mental illness, substance abuse, all those things. We are making terrible choices, and this was a professional. Now, as to the location, it must be in the city. We should stop thinking of development as only housing for commercial property. In this program on Rikers, it came up constantly, transportation all day long. It takes, the families were so disadvantaged. It came up relentlessly. We should say development that saves our taxpayers dollars over the long term in services because of convenience and the support of community. Because what changes that population is the support of their family and friends. To isolate them, to keep people locked up for 23 hours a day. I am shaking in my boots just hearing that and seeing that jug of water. I'm going to dream about that tonight, no doubt about it. So we can make great choices. We should really think of development in terms of our citizenry and how they are best served. When I drive around town and see so many areas that would be perfect, they're on the bus route, they have access to services, attorneys can get there quickly, lots and lots of reasons. So I hope this committee puts somebody from the city on its composition. It's ridiculous not to have somebody from the city because that's the greatest source of the population and of the interest and the traffic. So let's think internally, let's think collaboratively. We have a process, let's clean that jail because Mr. Duggar is right. 3 to 5 years is a heck of a lot of time to let people suffer in those conditions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have time for one more.
I'm very fast. My name's Carol Wilson. I just wanted to say thank you to Sheriff Marte. Presentation was eye-opening, and I had actually heard some horror stories before, but it was different seeing them. My question for all of you is, when is the next meeting of this committee?
We will have to publish that. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer.
Okay.
And I would also like to apologize to a number of people tonight, but go ahead, Ms. Wilson.
Okay, well, I just want to say, communication's a little difficult, okay? Because I went looking for any information about this meeting, and it was not there, okay? Now, I understand it did turn up this afternoon, but, you know, I plan a little farther out, so just a word, okay?
Sure, and I do apologize to everyone. I am part of the problem with this evening's meeting and the timing, but also I've jumped into this without the background that the rest of you have. I have not been part of this committee before, and so I'm not up to date on some of the things that have gone on. But I am here because I believe in Intercept Zero, in trying to keep people from entering the judicial system. I am here because I believe in restorative justice, and I think that if the city really is interested in working with us on a location, perhaps they'll give us the Hopewell property that we have that's in the middle of the town. So we've got 2 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate the difficult task that you all have ahead of you and the responsibility of the commissioners, council, in making the final decisions on this. And I very much appreciate all of the perspectives around the table. I note that there are some important perspectives missing. But right now, I just want to ask the commissioners to please share your roadmap. You obviously have an idea of what subgroups you have in mind, when certain people will be consulted, when certain decisions will be made. Please share that with the community, because community justice affects all of us, and especially those of us who have been elected to represent the residents of Bloomington and Monroe County. And at this point, I don't know what your plan is. I'm very frustrated that there hasn't been more transparency. And of course, being a representative of the city, I'm sorry, my name is Isabel Piedmont Smith. I'm a city council representative in Bloomington. And as such, I also share the frustration that nobody from the city is on the commission. So I feel like there's a lot of unknowns, and that's what is causing a lot of frustration. So please, as one elected representative to 3 others, clarify what is your roadmap, when are people going to be consulted, how can they have true input into this process? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here, for paying attention tonight, and I will try to iron out all the problems I have caused. Thank you all. Meeting adjourned.